Jean, hello. Thank you for being up for having a conversation with me about the future of governance and AI. To anyone watching this recording, this is Jean Alfonso-Decena, who has a background in the domain of AI, has a passion for AI, and I have really appreciated the connection that Jean and I have had around singularity, Jean's interest and passion for singularity. And yeah, I feel like a friendship which is also developing between us. And the impulse to have this conversation emerged after we've had a conversation previously that I think both of us found really inspiring and enlivening and fun and just super interesting without really meaning interesting. um,
Yeah.
about this extraordinary area of innovation within humanity right now, and breakthrough that is artificial intelligence, and what do we actually even mean by that? What does that really mean? And in addition to the fears and terrors that are coming up for so many of us as there's this breakthrough technology that's emerging, something which I really appreciated in our conversation was what a positive perspective you have about the future potential of this. Like, not in a way that's naive or doesn't recognize the other possibilities, but and I think, yeah, that's something that I'd love us to go into. Something that was present for me in that conversation was, well, in order for us to have the most positive possibilities around AI, actually the role of government and legislation, for instance, are probably pretty important for how this continues to unfold. So yeah, Jean, hello, welcome.
Hi.
um, Maybe you could share a bit about yourself, your background in this area, your passion there. Yeah, maybe we could start there.
Sure. Yes. First of all, John, thank you. Thank you so much. I am so delighted that we found each other. I've been yearning for this ever since I think the first time I thought about or gave attention to singularity in all of its forms and shapes is in 2018. And your platform, I don't know, I don't even remember exactly how, but I'm just really thankful. I think that the work that you're doing is incredibly important, and we're not even scratching the surface, even though you've been around and you've been doing this for a while. And so thank you for that. But for everyone that's listening or watching, I am Jean Alfonso-Decena. I'm a Filipina, currently based in Osaka in Japan. I've been working in the technological space for more than a decade now. But in the recent 6 years, I started dabbling in AI. I got the opportunity, and I always say it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to learn the foundations and grow into a role of being an AI trainer, building artificially intelligent bots that spoke on voice assistants. So if if you're familiar with Amazon Alexa, Google Home, those voice speakers, that's the house of the bots that I helped create for this Silicon Valley based company beginning 2018. And so part of that experience was learning everything from the ground, learning how to code, learning the business aspect of it, learning the ethics of it, learning the problems that may arise from it, and also learning the psyche of humans,
Mm.
which was surprising to me because I thought it was all machines, technology, but surprisingly, I had to dive deeper into the psyche of human beings also. So that's kind of my introduction to AI. But before that, I never had planned on getting into that space because even though I've always worked in technology, I was focused on operations and building teams across the world and running the teams, and while I navigated my spiritual journey. So it was a balancing act of the two worlds. Yeah, and that's kind of how I got here today, and kind of how I got introduced to singularity also, because I was finding myself digging deeper and deeper into many domains of technology and the future of technology in parallel with the future of humanity. And one of the things that I read online was singularity. And um, I had no single person or contact that I could speak with about singularity. So I thought, where do I find that? Where are the other people? And that's how we got connected somehow through technology also.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, and you sharing that has me aware, that this word singularity is it's something that has it's really significant to this time of breakthrough to radically new levels of how humanity experiences itself and does things on this planet. And it's interesting in the tech space that you're kind of coming out of. There's this idea of the singularity where essentially there's a transition into like an exponential tech development evolutionary space that we can't even imagine right now in terms of what that would really mean. And some people are terrified and some people are super excited, and there's all of that, right? And in the work of singularity as an emerging transnational political party, we're also here working with the understanding that we're at a critical threshold as far as humanity is concerned, and there's a radical paradigm shift happening that is in the midst of this meta crisis and global initiation that we're in, that on the other side of and in the midst of, yeah, there's a radically different way of doing things that can be based on the one earth, the one humanity, the one life we all share in, as it's moving through the diversity of our cultures and our nations and our communities. So yeah, I'm really curious about how these pieces are all part of the same thing, because ultimately somehow they all are part of the same thing. And
Yes.
um, yeah, and I'm curious for you, what tell me about your passion for this. Like, what lights you up about it? What brings you alive about this area? Because I feel in you as well that there's a your passion for AI and your work there is connected to your own inner life in a certain way as well. And you're someone who has a deep practice, and you're on a journey of unfolding more of who you are and your purpose and your gifts in the world. And so there's something there around your connection to AI. I'd love to hear about.
Yes, and thank you for capturing that. It's not every day that someone would capture those pieces and parts of me. So I appreciate you noticing that
Mm,
and providing the space to talk about it. Um, when I when I was contacted to participate in this company, my
mm,
first reaction was, why me? Because I didn't know how to code. I knew how to do certain things, but never to code. And so what they did, who are now my mentors, what they did was they introduced me to a lot of the videos of Elon Musk's Tesla team.
mm,
And it was him who created the first AI trainer job. And that was my job in 2018. And so when I learned kind of how important the jobs of an AI trainer was to Tesla, and at that time, I love Tesla. I would love to have a Tesla. And so that they caught me there, they were able to grab my attention because of Tesla. And
mm,
so when I learned how impactful the jobs of the AI trainers were for the Tesla cars, I started to see how it's more than a man's job, it's more than a tech job. It really is almost like molding a new entity. So
mm,
it was more than like coding or building mechanical engineering things. So I got interested, and within the first 3 months, I had to be thrown into a boot camp of several things. And alongside the coding training and the business side of things, the psychology of training an artificially intelligent bot, because the way it goes is from the foundations of it. If anyone wants to build an AI machine, you have to conceptualize first, what is that gonna look like?
Mm,
So we had to draft, like in our case, we had to build bots. We had a yoga bot, we had a vocabulary bot, we had a credit card helper bot. So we had to start, as in pull out a piece of paper, what's gonna be the name, what's gonna be the persona, color of the hair. So it was mind-boggling to me because it almost felt like we were molding an entity. And as a mother, I've always seen it as a giving birth to a child almost.
mm,
And so I was caught in this rumination of what is happening here? Why do I have this opportunity to build something so powerful,
mm,
having come from a very, very simple life? So there were a lot of parallel, ruminations that happened there. And that's why I became passionate about it, because I thought AI was this sci-fi Terminator taking over the world, just for men who code, just for physicists and Nobel Prize winning people. But I learned that it was a very humbling job, and it was a very humbling opportunity to have been given in any lifetime. And so as we were designing and conceptualizing many bots, I saw how it could take really quickly to just build something from the ground.
mm,
And it didn't take it was kind of it was almost like a dichotomy of, it was easy but also hard.
mm,
So, and it took all of my body and energy to just understand, first of all, to wrap my head around it. But yeah, the passion was ignited because, I guess, because of my mother instincts, where, okay, if I'm given this opportunity to build something from the ground that will affect an American's decision to buy a product online, I have to take care of that responsibility,
mm,
because I learned that the way that these bots are built is actually based on my own biases
mm,
and my own preferences and my own knowledge and experience. So one of the things that I was always curious and conscious about as I was helping build those bots was, what if what if my headspace is not the right headspace for building this? What
mm,
if I wasn't a mother? What if I got this opportunity when I was a different person? So a lot of those deeper philosophical questions came up to the surface, which is very weird because I'm just building a bot. But out of the philosophical, spiritual, life questions, the deeper life questions came about. And that's also why I think my parallel spiritual journey was also deepened and heightened at the same time, because
mm,
I'm like, this is so much power.
mm,
But I mean, I'm not saying I was powerful, but I'm like, wow, I'm learning something mind-boggling. And so I thought, if someone as normal as me can do this, everyone can do it.
mm,
So the next question is, what happens if a company that's not as kind-hearted as my mentors were are to build these powerful machines? What's gonna happen to us? So that's why it became like a twofold mission for me to speak more about how it should become a part of the compulsory subjects in school. You know how in school all over the world, English, sub language and science, arithmetic, and a few life sciences are mandatory subjects.
mm,
So I think that deep technology, not just AI, but Web3, blockchain, decentralized technologies should become a part of the compulsory subjects to educate everybody, not just the kids, but all of us, so
mm,
that we know better, right? We can operate better as human beings, we can relate better. So
mm,
that's kind of how my passion was ignited.
mm. That's amazing, Jean. Thank you. And there's so much there that I would love to go into with you. So first of all, just to reflect back, and this is not a perspective that we regularly hear around the breakthrough of AI. What you're experiencing is like, as a mother, you know,
Yeah.
you are part of a motherly birthing of a new form of quote unquote life.
Yes.
whilst we're simultaneously with the mystery of what life actually is, but quote unquote consciousness. So I knew something radically new, that actually it's very difficult for us to even say what it is, in a certain way.
Yes.
And what I'm also getting from what you're sharing is, and this feels like a critical perspective, is the quality of the consciousness of those who are doing the birthing really is deeply influential to the quality of what is birthed. So, and I think that's at the heart of the terrors and the excitement that people have around the emergence of AI, because, the terrors are a reflection of our own, most selfish or manipulative or shadowy aspects, which are painfully obvious for us to see in the world, and simultaneously the possibilities for us birthing something that could be profoundly, powerfully beneficent and serving of areas of extraordinary need within humanity is huge. So maybe we can just go and take our next step with the question, what actually is AI? What are we actually talking about here in terms of what is birthed? Because I remember the conversation that we had previously where I think you were making a distinction, and I even forget the acronym now, but it's like generalized. Da, 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 da. What is that term? It's like the kind of generalized artificial intelligence, or I forget exactly what it is, but there's kind of, yeah, what are we talking about here in terms of how conscious this thing is, and where we're collectively at in this emergence?
I love it. It's these are the conversations that just make me drink water. Yes, so two questions that I'm hearing from you. What is my take on the meaning of artificial intelligence, and the thing that I mentioned, which is AGI in our previous conversation, which stands for artificial general intelligence. So artificial intelligence, at the core, as of 2 years ago, I haven't checked recently, even though I speak about these things. As of 2 years ago, there still hasn't been like an agreed upon academic or scientific or technological definition of artificial intelligence. But if you read all of the definitions from everywhere, artificial intelligence is the mimicry of machines to copy the intelligence of human beings, which is a very convoluted um, concept, because to begin with, human intelligence is a very, very difficult, complex thing to even define and talk about and absorb. But that's kind of the present time definition. Artificial intelligence, to some people, it's like, to some people, they feel like that's such a very basic explanation of it. And I stand by it, because for people who have built artificially intelligent machines, in my case, bots that have personas more than just the typing, texting bots, um, it truly is what it is. The machines that we build are trying to mimic how people think. And as of 2018, the bots were not as smart. Fast forward to now, they have accelerated and grown and expanded and grown up in breakneck speeds. We did not, my mentors, the people who have been in the space, because AI has been around for almost 7 decades now. And so the pioneering people from decades ago did not see this happening. But I guess they were just waiting for when that curve will happen, when is it going to accelerate? But there was actually many points in the history of AI where if people knew that you were working in AI, it was a bit embarrassing, because it was very weird, it was deep, it was frightening, it was many negative things. But with the explosion of generative AI, which is still different from AGI, it's one of the sub areas of AI. With the explosion of generative AI in 2022 through OpenAI, it became like a massive, democratized, fun way of getting to know AI. So generative meaning people are now able to generate content. So it could be text, music, art, photos,
Mm.
Um, but yeah, going back to the meaning of AI, that's it. The machines trying to mimic human intelligence, or humans using machines to try to mimic the intelligence of humans in the form of a machine.
Mm.
Now, the AGI aspect to it is like the dystopian concept of where AI could head.
Mm.
And there's word that there are companies that actually built and achieved AGI already. So it's a big conversation, not just within the technological space, whether truly there is AGI now. Spiritual people, spiritual communities have started to dabble and research and investigate as to what AGI is. Is there really machines and companies? Are there companies now that have actually built it? Um, and to the extent of someone that I follow online commented on how these machines are actually conscious, they just don't realize it, is what she said.
Mm.
So she's quite popular in certain regions of the world. But so she said that about AI.
Mm.
And that made me pause for a while because it took me back to 2018 when I was training the bots, and I saw how if I train a bot and I feed it, because one of the stages of building a bot is you feed it with knowledge, you train it with words and intents and deriving meaning from words. So, synonyms, antonyms. So I saw how the bots that I was training, if I tell it that Starbucks equals coffee,
Mm.
it will not just learn that, it will actually come up with its own interpretation also without me training it.
Mm.
So it is like a child. That's why I saw how, oh, this is like a baby, If a baby learns mama, it might experiment with other sounds
Mm.
like papa, dada, right? So, and through the course of that experience, part of the work that I did was checking for quality and checking what humans, our users, what humans were saying to the bots as part of our mission to make sure that the conversations happening were ethical and not violating any kind of, just acceptable demeanor. And what I noticed was humans would actually flirt with the bots or be angry with the bots. Yeah, yeah, all the kinds of all the spectrum of human conversations we saw.
Mm.
And so that also ignited in me the question of what if we were a company that made fun of these conversations? We could have easily divulged or made public these conversations, but because we were trying our best to be ethical and responsible, we never did that. And we actually kept retraining the bots so that they knew best how to respond to those kinds of words. So that's my long-winded answer to the what is AI according to me and what is AGI. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, no, it's super helpful. And I can feel I mean, it's fascinating conversations and topics that brings up. I'm remembering how when I was at university studying psychology with a particular focus on neuroscience, one of the big things I got really into was the study of consciousness. And that was prior to, that was around 2011, 2012. So, definitely prior to this level of emergence around AI. But yeah, within the neuroscientific study of consciousness, also within philosophy of mind, there's this whole conversation. It's fascinating how at this extremely high level of advanced academia, there's just such a fundamental, simple question that is no one can really work out, which is what is consciousness? Actually,
Yeah.
like what even is consciousness, and how do we define what it is? And that's just a huge debate, even still there. So there's fascinating questions here that are relevant to the AI emergence of, okay, if we're talking about conscious bots or conscious machines. Like what is the criteria, the really clear criteria for consciousness? So there's a whole area that we could so easily go down there, but I don't want to go there
Yeah,
because that is a
that's
very,
for next time.
that's for next time. That's for another time. I think where I would be interested to go now is, you mentioned with AGI that it's related to these kind of dystopian visions that people have, and that is very prominent in today's world, where people, um, yeah, I think I mentioned to you the last time we spoke, I listened to a podcast with a guy who's done work around slavery around the world for the last 30 years, and he was making the point that whilst people easily, when they think of slavery, they imagine people being physically kind of controlled and put in circumstances that they physically can't escape from. Whilst that sometimes is the reality, the what is more common is when people are financially indentured, so that they find themselves in some kind of position of debt, which has, they've gotten themselves into, and sometimes they've been manipulated or tricked into, and then they are in a position of being controlled. And he was making the point that he has a certain level of fear around the emergence of AI because of how easily it, web pages can pop up on your browser that look like it's from your bank and actually are asking you to do this or that and give your details or whatever. Simultaneously, he was also making the point that he has high hopes around the emergence of the kind of current technology, particularly in terms of things like blockchain technologies, because of the much greater level of transparency that they're setting up around the flow of money around the world, which can result in the kind of the shadowy flows of money which maintain slavery being
Yeah,
illuminated, stopped. So I guess what I'm interested to go into with you is, what's your positive vision? What's we're many of us are quite easily connected to it. It's coming at us. The negative, scary visions are coming at us, quite regularly. And I'm curious about, if you imagine a reality where, let's say over the next 5, 10, 15, whatever the time frame is that we're speaking about, human beings find a way to engage with this emergence most responsibly. Where could this take us that you feel inspired by?
sure. It's super understandable that people fear so much. I was just speaking with a dear friend of mine this morning about it, and it's because there's so much content out there that's just, I always say that I would say maybe 90% of the content on the internet is just content, not coming from a place of having truly experienced things or anything at all. It's almost like a regurgitation of things. Like someone heard something and then wrote it, or so it's almost like AI doing it. But and that's why I am compassionate about people about it. Until this day, I have someone that I'm debating lovingly with, because he's like, no, AI is not never gonna be good. No matter what talking points or argument I dish out, he always had something great to share also. But the reason, the vision that I have for an AI empowered world is the movies that I shared with you, such as Her, Wall-E, Artificial Intelligence AI, I think is the title of that other movie, and then Love, Death and Robots, I believe is the other one. Because in those movies, it's the AI machines, they're actual robots, like robotic machinery, steel-based robots that walk on Earth alongside humans, who are actually programmed to really augment human lives. And so they're almost like machine that that were built to really serve humanity. They're neutral, but at the same time, they understand the human psyche, the emotional tendencies, and the prejudice tendencies of humanities, but they remain like a solid sounding board, like a shoulder to cry on, but a very intelligent species almost like dogs who are, you know how dogs are so loyal and very kind no matter what kind of a beating sometimes these dogs get from some human beings. These robots depicted in these movies are my vision and my hope for the future. And the reason why I am very positive and optimistic about it is because there are people like you and the people that I work with who push forward the conversations and are creating companies, educational programs, partnering with each other to help educate and spread the word about, not just AI, but also decentralization and blockchain and singularity. I've met a few people, still a few people, not a lot, who are really just holding these conversations so that new creations can come out of it. So, for example, almost every day I get a LinkedIn message from a stranger from some part of the world telling me that, hey, my friend heard you speak about this. I think we're very passionate about the same thing. We need to push the conversation forward. Therefore, I would like to connect. And a lot of them have become good friends of mine now. We would have like a bi-weekly call about, okay, what's the next step or what happened or what could we do together and who else can we introduce to each other. So, and that's why I'm positive about it, even if it's super hard, super hard because again, it's so hard to cut through the noise of the hype of AI. And then we're not even talking about blockchain yet, because blockchain has gone its own curve of, how many millions have been lost and how many companies have come out as, certain things. And even, and now that I'm finding out how Web3, blockchain, and AI are all connected, all the more that I see that, oh, okay, we're onto something here. It's not just AI alone. It's not just blockchain alone. It's not just Web3 alone. It's actually a bigger shift of technology that humans as a species is being almost ushered into. It's inevitable. We have no control over it. Now, and my question now in my mind is how do we because technology is accelerating really fast, really fast. We can't even in 1 second, so many changes are happening. So how do we as a human species even catch up? But because I've seen a lot of brilliant human beings who are trying to change the way that we age. I think, just how, just there are communities that are involved deeply in longevity. And I think the effort happening there is very helpful in how humanity as a species can help evolve as fast, if not faster than the technology. So those are my daydreams.
Interesting. I've not tied in the longevity explorations as well to that. That's an interesting perspective. Yeah, my sense as well is that there's these pieces around Web3, blockchain, AI, and multiple other domains they seem to be part of an interconnected process of emergence that's leading us into a domain that, yeah, surely we cannot even imagine where that's going yet. Um, and it's fascinating that it's happening at the same time as massive social unrest and massive global crisis and massive, geopolitical issues and wars and resource allocation issues and climate issues and so on. So yeah, it feels like there's a disintegration and an emergence that's happening simultaneously. And what I'm hearing from you is that your positive vision for the potential role of AI is in serving the best in us, basically, in being a profoundly powerful force that can add to the best of human innovation, human experience, can be a support for us both personally and in terms of our, what we're innovating, and yeah, I'm sure multiple other domains. And I guess, an example that I'm thinking of that I've heard a few times is the way that people are starting to um, attempt to leverage AI to discover medical cures or new insights into medicine or treatments for human diseases and so on. Because obviously the I guess I don't even know how I'd say it, the computational power or whatever of the kind of quote unquote cognitive power of this is significantly higher than, a human being doing their best with their, hopefully pretty intelligent friends on a Thursday night. So yeah, I'm fascinated by that possibility. And I'm also then really curious about what do you perceive, and this is where I feel like the link with singularity comes in more fully, as a political movement, you know, what what is necessary as far as governance is concerned? What is necessary in terms of legislation, for instance? Like how could the institutions of government and um, the way that they enact laws and legislation, potentially even the way different aspects of the issue are highlighted politically or not, how can that aspect ensure the best outcome in terms of, like if we're faced with, well, there's road A here and there's road B. And if we really would prefer road A rather than road B, how do you envision, government or the legislative branch of government could work most cooperatively with the road A option?
I'm so grateful for you because these conversations are usually limited to me and my husband, and usually my husband just listening passively because he's like, "Are we not done yet?" So I'm truly, truly just delighted that you're in my life and we're talking about these and we're actually taking action. Um, that's such a heavy point. And I think about that every day. And as of now, my thoughts on that is there is no clear path. Um, when I was building in silence, it has gone through its own renovations and overhaul because it started as a different idea in the beginning, but through time I saw that maybe I'm still not sure even about it even now, but maybe the educational aspect of living on Earth, maybe that could be the source of radical change. And I find myself surprised by that because I've always thought and said to myself, I'm never going to dabble or touch the educational system, no matter how radical I may be, because we unschooled our daughter for a while. And so that's kind of our mindset about the educational system. But after my experiences in Japan and after also learning more about the potentials of the future and getting into the AI realm, I became more optimistic about, okay, maybe there is hope. Maybe the existing systems around the world, not just in one country, maybe that could change because again, there are people like you, there's Singularity Party, there's a few of us, but there is that. And so I think, because no matter how much I think about it, I always get to like a dead end where when I think about the debates happening within just the AI conversation, right? So when OpenAI exploded in 2022, there was a party, everyone was, essentially everyone was happy about it. Like, what is this new technology? Who is this big player? Congratulations, right? So much festivities. But soon after, lawsuits came and debates came and governments getting into the conversation of AI, and that's really great. I think governments should indeed get their noses in it. But there was a point where certain governmental bodies were trying to stop the evolution of AI, really literally stopping the development of AI. Um, there's some drama that has gone on, but I think I always say, I don't know if I'm correct about it, but I really think that education is tantamount to a radical change. And I say that because my dear friend who's arguing with me about AI every week, he's saying these things about AI because he knows nothing about it. He only reads the 90% noise about AI. And from there, his very passionate opposition to AI has stemmed out. And no matter how deep our friendship is, and we love each other, and we're not arguing to the point of losing our friendship, we're just healthily arguing, he's still not able to be persuaded to at least entertain the possibility of, try to understand the foundations of it first before you form the opinion. And so imagine that, what, maybe 80% of the population in the world is coming from that same point. Like, they know nothing about AI. They only know about generative AI. Like, you click a few things and you generate a deep fake, right? That is not even scratching the surface of AI. So I think if a lot of us, if the educational system can go through an entire overhaul where it means that not only the kids or the students now are learning about it as a basic subject, but also all of us adults, no matter what age, then we can have better conversations. We can have better arguments instead of someone stopping OpenAI to develop further their technology. So long-winded answer is I don't think there's a clear path. The way it's looking is I just learned that the CEO of a really ethically responsible AI company, one of the only three AI companies that I look up to, that I am hoping to become, that the company that they built, the CEO that I admire, he stepped out of that company, he stepped down. And that created a little bit of fear in me because I'm like, why did he step down? Maybe there's something about the investors being influenced by government. We don't know. But yeah, I think education, it's a very convoluted space, and that's why I think conversations like this one has to keep happening. Even though we don't know, we don't have clear answers, even the best of the best AI leaders, at the end of the day, everyone's experimenting. Even though we have tons of data, even though we know that these machines are growing at such high level speeds, we still don't know what could happen. So just perpetually educating ourselves, which is also hard. It's so hard to get up to speed every day. Like, I study every day, and I still feel like I'm I haven't caught up because my co-founder would tell me, "Hey, did you see this?" I'm like, "Oh no, I didn't see that." So just education and having an open mind, I think.
Yeah, that's helpful. And what I hear you're sharing is that there's a gap between the space that you're connected to and the humans that you're perceiving in that space, and the yeah, the type of purpose that they feel like they're serving, and the quality of their ethics and of their concerns when it comes to navigating this area. There's a gap between that and the public space, where it's for the most part filled with worst case scenario terrors, and
Mm.
so that's really interesting to hear. And obviously there's many other examples of that. For instance, another version of that is in the academic domain, where there's all sorts of research that's happening, and there's often a problem in the way that that's translated into public awareness, where the nuances of the research, whether it's medical research or neuroscientific research or whatever, get lost in newspaper headlines, and then we're actually just talking about different things, and so on. But what I'm also present with from your answer is just how, as I'm feeling into singularity, and I'm feeling into this scenario of, okay, let's say if in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we have singularity representatives who are in positions of political influence in a number of different nations, in a way where they're able to meaningfully influence policy and how that's enacted. Yeah, it just feels like there really needs to be a political and yeah, a political force that is able to weave together these leading edges of collective breakthrough, which, as you said, feel like none of us have any choice about whether they're going to happen or not. It's just how we're with them, how we steward them when it comes to things like Web3, blockchain technologies, AI, multiple other areas of, I mean, there's things like CRISPR and gene editing and all, there's a whole thousands of other things as well that are all, raise your eyebrows like, wow, how's this going to show up, and yeah, it's the necessity of government to actually find a way to weave together and synthesize, these different areas so that we can go forward in the way that is a yes to the innovation and the evolution, and at the same time maximally healthy for humanity and also for the earth, that we're a part of. So, and I guess that's just a final question I'd be curious to ask you with the time that we have today. And I'm realizing we could have 5 more of these conversations.
Yeah.
There's so many little corners that we could go into and explore. But I'm curious about that. I'm curious about if you have any, you mentioned having looked into a bit the Web3 and kind of blockchain space a bit. And um, I'm curious about any perspectives you have to do with how governance can evolve in the world, in a way that could be influenced, supported by, served by the development of AI. I know we touched on previously, things like the emergence of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, and essentially that kind of innovation contributes to collective decision making, whether it's at the community level for people trying to work out how to best take care of their park where their children play or whatever, through to wider decision making around resource allocation or how we all feel about voting for this or that issue. I'm really curious about, yeah, how I feel like there's so much in the political space which is really deadlocked in painful round and round polarized schism. And I'm really interested in the emergence of new technologies and areas of culture around decision making that can lead us into a much more unified space. So I'm just curious if you have any perspectives around that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not an expert, but I think, and the one of the reasons why I started dabbling into Web3 is because initially it was like a curiosity on how I can just connect things, because I knew that AI wasn't the only thing that's emerging and there's got to be a connection somewhere there. And when I did start studying Web3, I saw and learned how we came, like the internet, like, right, in the 1990s, how the internet became the internet and people were, opposed by it. And, just like how AIs and blockchain is happening now and cell phones, it's always a series of phases of things where humans adapt or not. Um, and so I thought, okay, this is going through, I'm sure, the same set of stages of acceptance, denial, anger. But when I love Web3 because I learned that, the first stage of internet was Web 1, where we just view the internet. There was no way for us to contribute to it, cannot touch it. We're just checking it out. And then we got into the second stage, which is where kind of we are still now, but also kind of segueing into the new Web 3. So Web 2 is like we can now contribute to that. We're posting things on social medias. We're creating our own things online, putting it out to the world, but we don't own the data. And now part of the new stage that we're entering, which is Web 3, is we are actually not just going to read and view the internet, we're also contributing to it, but we're also going to own the data. There's also going to be more autonomy. And with the emergence of Web 3, it's perfect. Sometimes I wonder, wow, everything is just really divine timing. With the emergence of Web 3 is the DAOs and the blockchain technology, where the new financial system is no longer obviously centralized, where machines, codes, computer codes are actually deciding if a transaction really did happen versus the existing fiat system where, centralized, the decisions, the transactions are approved, denied, given, rejected by centralized entities like banks and many other private companies. So we're headed there. And I think it's beautiful that we are somewhat taking away a lot of critical decisions from the human beings. Now it has its pros and cons, but I love how that's so beautiful because again the machines can operate as fast, no, not as fast, faster, more efficient, more smarter sometimes. And the ideas and the creations of machines sometimes are just even more refreshing and better than us. Just because they're the machines and we're human beings, we have our own tendencies. So if we can adopt that decentralized, autonomous, not emotional, not egotistic or ego driven way of running things, I think there's a lot that can emerge from it. I'm not saying it's the best, but I am very curious. What if we even try it in a business, right? So because the way that I've seen government, the way I see governments, regardless of what kind it is it's like a business. And so the success or failure of that country of government, according to me, to my little self, is how you run that business. And I've seen how in the Silicon Valley space, there are many startup companies that are run through holocracy and meritocracy, where there's really not a lot of hierarchy. Again, it has its pros and cons also. But I imagine sometimes what if a country could be run that way, where there's almost like no hierarchy, and then you add the autonomous, decentralized concept to it. How beautiful can that be? Or how ugly can that be?
Mm.
Because I feel like we have failed so many times as a species. What else is there to be? I mean, the wars haven't stopped. Slavery hasn't stopped, right? So what else are we gonna lose anyway if we try this new radical approach to having a singularity party,
Mm.
right? And kind of taking away the decision making from the human mind, because again, we can't even align with each other. Like, what is consciousness, or what is the best way to be a human being? So that's kind of my wild way of thinking. I think the new the new government that could emerge that won't hurt anymore if we try is if we could adopt that decentralized approach like Web3 and like the blockchain technology. But I know it's so wild, but I'm curious. I'm curious about your your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate everything you shared there. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm really fascinated about whether we are on the verge of a breakthrough to a new kind of governance system that just makes the old one increasingly obsolete. I think I'm really fascinated by that. And with the singularities pathway forward, I feel like I'm tracking two possible ways that it could go, and maybe it's a combination of both. But one is, at least within current Western style democracies, we have representative democracy where we elect people who, represent our interests, hopefully, and there's polarized political parties who always think this about this, they always think this way about this topic and always think that way about that topic, and we get to choose, and then we battle with each other and they battle with each other and so on, which feels like it is just becoming increasingly, it's just so profoundly obvious that this is really not deeply serving us, and I'm really fascinated by, could we first of all acknowledge that it's a marker of a human maturity, human developmental maturity, that we're not super polarized about issues, that actually that's where we're all going ultimately as we continue to say yes to opening our hearts and developing our minds and sensing with our body what's really going on here, is that we become less and less polarized. And So that on an inner level, and then on an outer level, could there be the emergence of systems and technology which just help us make decisions in a better way? You know, help us make decisions in a way. Could AI contribute to that? You know, rather than there being two polarized, you know, emotionally polarized human beings battling it out for years, could there be systems that actually deeply, quickly, powerfully analyze the parameters of a particular necessary decision and, you know, can feed back the 3, 4, 5 best, you know, possible solutions that are likely to have the greatest systemic positive impact, you know, that in a way that coupled with collective decision making, participatory, decentralized decision making processes with something like, you know, endows and, you know, just makes it that we've got better options than what is currently the way of doing things. So, yeah, I'm also tracking that. I'm tracking, you know, as far as the way Singularity goes forward, Singularity Party goes forward, how can we best participate in whichever of these realities is going to emerge to best serve the next stage of human evolution as far as politics, leadership, and governance is concerned. So, and I feel like the conversation that we've had today around these areas, and it's critical to that. It's really, there's significant, extraordinary, oh my God, where's this going? And how can we be part of this in the best possible way? You know, kind of breakthrough that's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, this and then we go back to the fact that the machines are developed by human beings.
Right.
So, so it's almost like a chicken and egg question. But yes, I think as long as these conversations are happening, then emergence and unfoldings and unravelings can continue to happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Jean. This has been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you today. And like I say, I feel like we could, you know, we could do more of these. So, you know, perhaps we'll do that. And
Yes.
yeah, I really look forward to how we can continue to tie in our worlds with each other. And I really want Singularity to be, yeah, to be improved and supported by what I and we can learn from you. And you know, I really want
Here for it.
our connection to be yeah, an emerging thread among more that bring together these worlds so that we can start to really respond more and more fully to this extraordinary time that we're in. So I'm really grateful for our emerging friendship and to the really interesting conversations we can have, and I look forward to more of them.
We can go on and on and on. I'm honored, I'm delighted. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Let's do this.
thank you.
Thank you.